Yep. So the advantage of using these devices. So you were talking about creativity and the option for the...
Yeah, it was sort of like if we've been given a booklet to work through, then it wouldn't be like that interesting, because I think you'd feel like under duress to find all the answers. But then when you're given the opportunity just to say you need to make a documentary about Tynecott, the cemetery, you need to tell us a bit about it, give us a bit of background, it sort of gives you scope to adapt the information and use the information any way you want, because you're creating something. It's hard to kind of explain, but it's like easier in an odd way to try and put it together. Like, for example, when we were doing it, we were saying, oh, we've got something on, like a little bit of the background about the graves, we've got something on like the back memorial with all the names on it, or maybe we should do the monument in the middle, and it kind of makes you look for like bits of information to make it more interesting. And it's all kind of up to you, so you don't feel like, if you're not too interested in something, you don't necessarily have to do it. And you can focus on the things you're interested in. It gives you like more autonomy really to pursue your own interest.
Personalised learning, it does help for personalising like your learning.
Yeah.
And also, the fact that when, I think a few people, maybe when you saw the iBook, so we had tasks when we're there thinking, oh no, we've got tasks, same as like pupils. Well, I remember when I went on school trips, the last thing you want to be doing on a school trip is learning something. It's the fact that you're going on a trip somewhere different that makes it more interesting.
Yeah.
But then it didn't feel like it would be learning, it was more like you're being tricked into learning, which is a good thing. I've done it. It's quite you're learning something, but they're doing it in a fun way, and you did learn something. Like we're learning,
yeah, we learned
and then the discussing. Like some people might have a bit of knowledge about something, and they'll start chatting about it, and then other groups were coming up to us and like say, Alex, what's this? And then it gets everyone discussing rather than getting told this is so and so, go write about that, and you're just like, oh shit, you've already told me the answer, I've not learned anything for myself there.
And you can do things in an odd way a lot faster than if you it kind of holds your interest a lot more. You can do things a lot faster. So like when we were going around like the Clothall Museum and our group had to collect information on weaponry, you can like read the information and then just take a picture of it. And you can see like these images, like big posts and stuff, and you think, oh, that'd be great to use in class, and rather than having to go back home and then research on the internet and try and find it and try and remember, it's easier to take a picture of it in that moment when you're interested in it. Then you have it and you can review it. So it's a lot more like efficient way, and if it's more efficient, it tends to hold your interest a lot more easily.
And the fact that a lot of places we went to had Wi-Fi and was incorporating, like they had the QR codes at Lavoisier, say it properly. They had the QR codes there and stuff like that. So the fact that everywhere you go is going to start bringing that in.
Let me just pick up on that. How much did you use the Wi-Fi when it was available?
I used mine. I didn't personally use it at Lavoisier, but I did use it at the Clothall, and that was quite nice to have the internet available on your device, because if you're looking at a piece of information or looking at a piece of like armour, or like the one that got me was like the soldiers from Quebec wore kilts. And then you can just instantly go online and be like, learn more about the kills and be like, oh yeah, this was an actual thing, rather than just the small piece of text that's in the museum. You can actually you can sort of pursue your own interest really, and I think that's the key to it really. It allows you to pursue your own interest, either in terms of the way you write down the information. You're not just using pen and paper. You can either type it into the iPad, you can film it, you can record yourself talking about it. And then also it gives you the scope to do further research on the iPad there and then when you're the most interested, rather than if you go, like if we had to come back today and then be like, right, what have you found out? And it's like, you've written this down, you've written that down, and so what's that? It feels like, it's like a bit of a past thing, and you want to, you're interested in something at the time when you're in that situation, so you want to do it then. So it just allows you to do that, really.
It also helps as well the fact that, like, if you was a student with the kilts and you go up to your teacher and say, why did they wear kilts? It helps the teacher not having to... No teacher's going to actually know about that answer. And it's an easier way. Again, it makes it easier for them.
Okay, so Kevin and I have been working a little bit on a model at the moment, which we're calling this 3-part model. And we're thinking about... and you talked a lot about how the Rice used to be as trainee teachers. And that's great. And I'll come back to about pupils in a second. But the first is then, what kind of resources, if you were preparing a trip yourself, what kind of resources would you want to have available on the device for the kids to take with them?
Movie making things such as iMovie or Explain Everything. The iBook Creator is a good thing, because they're creating something that they can then use the iPads for afterwards, and they could share it with the rest of the class.
I'm just going to jump in because that's things that they might do later on. I'm thinking that anything you'd put on the device, not applications, that's important as well, but any resource you'd put on the device to take.
What Stuart prepared the iBook to tell you what he was doing at each place. Again, reducing paper, the fact that, right, turn to page so-and-so, I've lost page so-and-so, I ain't got it, it's in your iBook, you just flick to the next thing, and it also gives a bit of structure so that they know what's coming up. They can flick through and think, right, where are we off after this? What would have made it better as well is you could put timings in and stuff like that to give the student, because the thing is you're in another country, you could have the fact that where you are in relation to France or Belgium, because a lot of pupils won't know where they are. You could even have, not just for the trip, for the actually when you get there, a whole itinerary of what time you're leaving, what service station you're stopping at, things like that. You could put you could even do it things like halfway through the journey, say, right now, there was games that even we was using on the way there, like that you could use to keep pupils occupied, like the charades games, or even make a quiz and have all the iPads linked up. I think they can link up through Bluetooth to each other, so you don't need to be in Wi-Fi. Just have a little quiz going on where you're like, right, quiz with your partner.
I think the good thing about having the iPads with you is you can save. I think the thing that would help with me if I was doing the teaching thing is it would save a lot of teacher talk. So if you said to them, right, I've got an iBook that's all sorted out for you, you don't have to read through it, I've just done a tutorial of what we're going to be seeing in the next plays. Within the next hour or whatever on the bus, make sure you watch this. It saves like trying to control a load of excited kids on the bus.
Yeah, a bit like that
when
flipped
you can
classroom.
just say you can watch the tutorial. This is what you'll be doing in the lesson. This is a little bit of background about the next play, and you can sort of watch it at the level, sort of your own leisure, and even possibly if you wanted, you could give it to them, like a sort of like a little presentation or a little talk for like half an hour before they come on the trip. Just so it gives them a little bit of background, so it in a way saves the teacher time on the trip, so the kids, it just saves time and that sort of
So
thing.
you have mentioned something already, but to clarify that, what other things might have you added to the iBook if you were doing it that Stuart didn't have?
Tutorials.
Tasks during the actual trip that you could do, like, right, within the first hour and a half of the trip, obviously you ain't going to get us to do that because we're students anyway, but if it was pupils, right, in the first hour and a half I want you to say, even if it's things you spot on the way, stuff like that, or anything, just to keep them occupied, and it keeps that like a bit of energy on the trip, and that they're always doing something. Could even add on it sleep time.
Yeah.
So like again, pupils know that by the time it gets to 10:30, they're expected to be getting sleep. So it's not the teacher saying, right now, time to go to sleep, and they're like, well, I'm halfway through a song or I'm watching a film. They know that when it comes up to that time, that's the time it's going to stop.
When there are loud people playing pool at midnight, that sort of thing. Shocking. Can't believe it. Okay, excellent. There are also things like there are widgets that you can get now for iBooks that allow people to add things themselves. You say 4 things you want to know.
Yeah, it's a bit difficult though if you use that book creator. I don't know you would add a widget to that. I don't think it's possible,
no, you can't. No, you need something else. Okay, good. So when you're actually on the trip, you mentioned video and audio. Any other kind of and stills? Any other kind of data you might get pupils to gather when they were there? Let's assume they had devices or some devices between them.
You could, if you get a graph app, for creating graphs and charts. I've got one, but it's ridiculously complicated, but it's because it was a free one. I think if you paid for like a 69p one, that'd be easier. What's the huge one? Is it Thiepval?
Yep.
Where they had French and British troops.
Yep.
You could have done like a little mathematical, bringing in a bit of numeracy. What percentage of the French graves are unnamed? At this place, what percentage are British? Because you've got the exact same amount British, and that'd have been a good way of doing it. Because I did think of that when we were there, because it's a lot of unnamed French graves, and you compare the percentages, and then you could do that at every.
Nice idea.
But maybe not for some of the huge ones like